which means data never goes away. So that over time, you can go back and determine where somebody's been for years, every single moment. Remember, bots are uniquely good at mining data. And you may not have a problem with this, actually. You might trust your government or whomever. But what about 10 years from now? Or what if that data gets sold, or maybe even to a foreign government? And if you travel, that might be a concern as well. Because it builds a complete profile of you, probably more than you know about even yourself. In 2005, MIT researcher Nathan Eagle did a study called reality mining, where they tracked 1,000 cell phones as they moved around campus. And at the end of that study, they wrote an algorithm that could predict with 85% accuracy what any individual was going to do next. And that's the power of simple software. No conspiracy necessary. So you might wonder what sort of data is being gathered on a routine basis out there in reality. Now this is a typical urban street. And once again, this is today. If we zoom in, we can see surveillance cameras. Now, of course, these are wired in once again to a system. The data is archived, and software is analyzing the images, keeping it for long periods of time. But those aren't the only surveillance cameras out in the world. There's private surveillance cameras, possibly nowhere near as well secured, data for sale to divorce attorneys. And then, of course, up at the end of the block, some weird guy with a webcam pointed at the street. Once again, available to the web, visible to bots. All of this visual data creates a context for the other data points that are being gathered by cell phones, by smartphones, emails, and so forth. And then, of course, there's the almost legacy process of gathering license plate numbers programmatically to track automobiles, but that's less and less necessary because new technologies make it easier. I'll pause this here. Now, many of you have Bluetooth devices in your car, but you may not know about the TPMS system. This is the tire pressure monitoring system. It was federally mandated by the 2001 TREAD Act. That's right. You all remember voting for this, right? It says that any car manufactured after 2007 has to have wireless nozzle pressure measurement devices that communicate with the computer on board the car to see that your tires are safely inflated. Now, they have to have a unique ID so that the computer knows your tires from the car next to you. And of course, it is an open standard, and it makes it very simple to track the unique identity of an automobile. But of course, to do that, you would have to have devices scanning. Fortunately, such scanners have started to spring up at choke points throughout modern cities. These are privately owned scanners, the data being gathered and stored, again, because it's cheap to store data, vast amounts of data. This data can be piled up along with your financial transactions and anything else, and bots can go through it to find persons of interest, or to just find patterns, or even just to sell you stuff. I'll give you an example of just a few such devices. There's a blue sweep scanner. And a blue sweep scanner is a device that's able to identify all Bluetooth devices within its radius, identify what their capabilities are, and what exploits they might be vulnerable to. A blue sniper can do this up to 1 kilometer away. Let's go a little further down the wall. There's the blue snarfer you were all expecting. Now, a blue snarfer can use an exploit given to it by a blue sweeper to steal your address book, your text messages, your calendar, your pictures of your kitties. And a Bluetooth car whisperer can push advertising into your car speakers through your car's Bluetooth system. Now, more worrisome, it could also be used to hook into your car Bluetooth phone system to eavesdrop on conversations in the car. Now, if you combine that with something like the TPMS system, or any future open standard device, you could pretty much track a car and listen to its occupants as they move throughout the city at any point in the future or at the moment it's happening. Now, so you're walking through this gauntlet of scanning activity with all your wireless devices. And again, I'm sure we were all aware of this. And then there's, of course, the financial transactions. Every time we buy stuff with a debit card or a credit card. Who, what, where, when. Combine that with visual data and all of the other points that tell us who was there with you, where you were going. It can be used to tell some very interesting stories. So it's a great constellation of information being gathered on us at all times. And then, of course, privately owned devices hoovering up all this information. So this is the world you live in right now. Who knows what it will be like 10 years from now? And this goes into the increasing complexity of the bot ecosystem in general. Because all of these corporate mergers have created a vastly complex system that no one really understands. You take mergers where they lay off half the IT staff, they have half-finished projects, maybe bots running that are completely forgotten, doggedly pursuing some original purpose that no one knows about, and also maybe even competing with each other even though the company is now one and not two. And then, of course, there's the occasional disgruntled employee who takes over the network. And I know that sounds impossible, but... So this could lead to a loss of human authority. Humans no longer fully being in control. Because it's really a system where historical decisions rule. Somebody or some group of people created an algorithm that decided something was true a while back, and it is put into force, and other people obey what it has to say. And over time, it becomes a black box, a proprietary mechanism that might in turn be folded into yet another algorithm, which becomes a black box. Unless people understand the proof of the logic that went into that algorithm. Now, Kurt Vonnegut wrote a book called The Player Piano, where society was completely on autopilot. Bots ran everything, including the factories. But I wonder if bots would be the ones working in the factories, because we might get the crap jobs. Because you don't need to have a body to manage a structured process. And that's what society has become, a structured process. Humans offloading decision-making authority. And ask yourself, would you notice? Do you really know that 75% of the decisions being made at your bank aren't being made by bots right now? Probably not. So rather than rising to some great complex golden age, I am concerned that human civilization might take a sidetrack and head towards a Boolean age, that is a time categorized or described as a constant bombardment of categorical questions that you must answer. You can't pose any questions that aren't asked directly of you. And I think we see elements of that already. So that's a structured existence in a structured society, and it is supremely efficient. And I think such a thing could give rise very easily to an elite group of people who would be the ones who understand how society works, and everybody else just answering the questions. And here's a quote from Carl Sagan's book, Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Darkness. Carl Sagan wrote, "Science is more than a body of knowledge. It is a way of thinking. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstitions and darkness. And I think that's the real danger there, is having a small group of people understanding how society works. So that's bots as a control mechanism, economic disenfranchisement at the flip of a bit. And you might not even know what went into making that decision about you, because remember, we have vast quantities of data about us. And bots are making qualitative decisions about us all the time. As a matter of fact, it might not be a person who decides, who makes that decision. It might be an algorithm.